Hey y'all, welcome back to the Lioness Den podcast. I'm your host, Rochelle Janell, and I have been away for a few weeks if you hadn't noticed, and that is because we have been on vacation in Santorini, Greece, and it was amazing. But it feels good to be back, and where we left off is a 5-part series that covers all phases of life of women from 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So let's dive into episode 6, Women in Your 30s, Owning Your Power. So, your 30s, let's think about it. You've gotten through those dreadful 20s because the 20s are the most difficult, challenging times for a young woman. You're finding yourself, you're navigating all of the changes. You haven't quite made it to what you want to do in your career or where you want to go to school or if you want to go to school. And now you have finally gotten to a point in life where you can reclaim your power, your 30s. And I think one of the biggest challenges of your 30s, particularly at the earlier stages of your 30s, is to understand that wherever you find yourself, you are not behind because you are still so young in your 30s and you can continue to reinvent yourself regardless of where you are, but you're not behind. Now, let's say you've entered your 30s and you're still a single woman with no kids. First of all, it's a flex. It is a flex. If you've made it to your 30s with no kids and you have not settled into marriage yet, you are still not behind. And it is highly likely that you have mastered the art of solitude and peace. And that, in my opinion, ladies, is a flex. One of the main things that I think women in their 30s need to consider, especially in this current day and age, is that there's no right or wrong way to do your 30s. And it's very difficult to let go of those checklists because it's highly likely that the checklist that you're aiming to achieve is not your checklist. And what I mean by that is, when am I going to have kids? When am I going to get married? When am I going to buy a house? This is the season, ladies, to create your own definition of success and not be defined by somebody else's checklist. I started all over again right at the age of 30. Got married in my 20s, and by 30, I was facing divorce. I had 2 kids in tow already, so I started all the way over again at 30. And it was literally from the ground up. So you can redefine yourself at any age. I started over in my 30s. I started over again in my 40s. One of the most important things you can do for yourself in your 30s is to let go of that external validation, trust your own intuition, and honor your own timeline. Because let's be honest, if you are being pressured to get married or have kids by your own inner circle, it's likely that that's a projection of women who have already made their choices, right? And now it's your turn, and you get to decide how you want to forge ahead in your life. And, I've been noticing on social media that a lot of women are choosing not to have kids, and that is okay. It is okay whether you choose to have kids, get married, settle down, and have kids or not. Whatever your choice is, it's your choice to make. Now, I know I'm talking a lot about women in their 30s who may be unmarried and no kids. And so I want to touch on one more thing in the women who fit into that category. If you can find the resources, this is the time, particularly in your early 30s, to travel abroad. Do it. Even if you have to travel solo, travel abroad because this may be the perfect time to incorporate those experiences in your life. Experiences that perhaps after you have kids and settle down that you may not have the resources to do. So I highly encourage you to travel abroad during this season. Now, one of the other things that women in their 30s face, married or unmarried, is if you have had to let go of toxic relationships with other women in your 20s. And as a result, you have found yourself with gaps in deep friendships with other women because you had to let some bad friendships go. So I would just encourage you to stay on your path, stay on your career path, stay on your personal development path, and those natural friendships will develop over time. And in order to encourage that, the best way to do it is to explore hobbies and clubs, and you've got to put yourself out there. It's no different than dating, right? To develop women friendships, you have to put yourself out there. So there are a lot of women in their 30s in this very situation. You are not alone, and that's okay. But right now, focus on you and what serves you. Say yes to you and no to what doesn't serve you. This is the season to do that. It's your season. Now, I say this in every episode, and I can't stress it enough in this one. In your 30s, the importance of taking care of your mental, physical, and spiritual self. Get into therapy, get into the gym, and take care of your mental, physical, and spiritual self. Let me just say this. Every woman in their 30s should have some type of workout routine. Can I say it again? Every woman in their 30s should have some type of workout routine. Every woman in their 30s should be watching their diet in some type of way. You cannot eat what you ate in your 20s in your 30s. And hear me out on this because it's coming from a good place. Okay? How you treat yourself, how you treat your physical self, your mental self, and your spiritual self in your 30s will inevitably come to fruition in your 50s and 60s. And that's just a fact. It will always come full circle, and what you did in your 30s will inevitably come to fruition in your 50s and 60s and beyond. And let me tell you why. Because in your 20s, you can pretty much eat whatever you want. For most people, you can eat whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. You can party. You can do whatever you want. Okay? And that little girl body will still stay intact. But once you enter your 30s, especially if you've had a couple kids, then all of that changes. It's a different landscape. You're in a different area of life. Okay? You're coming into your woman body. And so you have to establish those concrete habits because the 20s are gone and get into a regular exercise routine and watch your diet and start in your 30s. It's even more difficult to start in your 40s. It can be done, but it's much easier to start in your 30s. Okay? And lock that down and lock in and lock in. And trust me, when you get in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, the way you treated yourself in your 30s will have a big payoff in your 50s and 60s. I promise you that. And that payoff is either going to be a positive or a negative. And look around, just look around. Look around at the women in your circle, in your family, in your communities, and whatever you see, like women who are in their 50s and 60s, inevitably how they treated themselves or handled themselves in their 30s is what you see. So if you're in your 30s, you have full control to do it right now. Lock in, ladies. Lock all the way in because cha-ching is going to pay off in your 50s and 60s. And let me just be clear, I am not just talking about the physical you. Okay, I'm also talking about the mental and the spiritual you and how you take care of you in your 30s. Get into therapy. I don't actually, ladies, I don't know anyone who does not need a cycle of therapy. Just based on the world that we live in. Not to mention just being a young woman in your 30s in the world that we live in. So, when I say lock in, I mean lock in on all three aspects: mental, physical, spiritual. Because again, what you see in the older women, 50s, 60s, and beyond, is a indication. If you see like an older woman that's hurt and bitter and hanging on to things that she should have let go years ago, it's very likely that there was no therapy sought after. Do it for yourself, because in the long run, the payoff is great. And I can tell you from my own experience that um, I had so many things that I could have been bitter, angry, and mad at right now. Right now, lots of things. But I worked on myself a lot in my 30s. I continued into my 40s, but most of the self improvement, uh, going to therapy, all of the things that I poured into myself all happened in my 30s. And as a result, I'm now 60 and I am reaping the benefits of the work that I did in my 30s. I didn't let that define who I was as a woman. So just know, ladies, your 30s is a beautiful, wonderful, exciting season to explore. But there's work to be done in your 30s. Use discernment. You're still beautiful in your 30s. Your youth is not gone in your 30s. There's just a lot of work that needs to be done because you're chiseling away anything that may have occurred in your 20s. This is the time to clean all that up and build anew. And trust and believe the payoff is great. So we're going to end this episode right here. And I hope that you got something out of this episode. Your 30s are all about owning your power. Ladies, get out there and do the damn thing. Until the next episode, have a great day, ladies.